Hey, what's up, Roseanne?
Hi, Patrick. How are you today?
I'm good. Look, we decided to do this Truth Bomb Riff together, maybe in a new series of stuff that's going to happen on a daily basis. We're recording this on Monday, September 16th, 2024. And, we're going to try to do something a little bit fresh and innovative in addition to everything else we're doing. But I think that it goes without saying that to try to stay on top of this monumental wave of things that change second to second and information and tidal waves and this and that and everybody's information or excuse me attention spans going like this, they can't see the forest for the trees, and they're just a bunch of suckers except for those who sit back, live their lives, do whatever, and they're looking at everybody else like, what the hell is wrong with those people, right? But there's the disconnect, and there's so many things we could talk about it. So just out of curiosity, what are you paying attention to today, and how does it fit within your paradigm of what we're trying to do?
All right, let me tell you, okay? I have to focus like really hard because I like forget things, but I made up a nickname for Elon today. I
Nice.
called I called him the Scab Man. Okay. The Scab. He's a
What are they?
scab.
What are they? Everybody's calling him muskrat, by the way, but the scab man.
Yeah,
Okay.
I call him a Scab Man. Now, you see, in my uh,
Vernacular.
school in the 50s, okay, um we had all kinds of crazy little things, like people had what they called scabies or scabs.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
That's funny. You're going back to your high school years because that's what everybody seems to be stuck in is high school. On
Yeah, but I'm going back to like grade school. But
oh
anyway, so
yeah,
okay, so I'm telling people, look, man, he keeps saying all these stupid things like, oh, the Democrats are doing this, the Democrats are doing that.
okay. What are they doing? What is he saying?
He's saying they're the ones who are responsible for election interference. They're the ones responsible for for all
For
the.
the assassination attempt on Donald Trump yesterday, and also he's blaming the debt on potentially bankrupting the United States. What do you got to say about those two things?
Wait a minute, wait a minute. The immigration thing. So I gave him, well, this is in a whole other area that I'm looking at called next door, where these people are like really, really out of it. Okay. I post the 1924 immigration law. The 1924, we had no immigration quotas until 1924. 1924. Can you imagine? Can you even think about what this country would be like if we didn't have all the immigrants coming prior to 1924?
Well, the
Can
North American Indians would be happy about it. I'm pretty sure of that.
Well, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. But see, people are so all over the place. They're talking about Elon. They're talking about uh, all the people who tried to kill a Trump. Okay, were had voted for Trump, had been Trump supporters,
Yeah,
had
but more importantly, they were on the list of the FBI for having
right.
had mental problems, and of course, Trump was responsible for deregulating the laws that would enable people that have, to have background checks from getting assault weapons, and now they're crying about it. How freaking hilarious is that? Like everything else, Roseanne, Trump is a red carpet revelation reflection of every issue that matters.
The Clean New Deal. Okay. We have a cure. Do we not have a cure?
We do, but before we get there, just real quick, because I know we're like I'm timing this, and just so you know, we've got
Good.
I think we've got 10 minutes left, okay,
Okay.
for today, because we're going to try to keep those down to about 15 minutes. But let me feed in a few things first, like where I'm at, and see how you respond to it. So, like first and foremost, yeah, the assassination yesterday and the absurdity of really it's a promulgation of propaganda through idiot fake bot accounts that speak on a level of literally, like you said, elementary school, that say the most ridiculous, absurd, hateful, intimidation, any manner, shape, or form of anything that's not free speech, first and foremost. Okay. Then you tie that to the fact that you've got a guy running for president under 34 convictions, and this guy's getting more and more security in mainstream media is like, oh yeah, it was horrible and this and that and the other. But at the same time, this pig who created an insurrection, who's trying to overthrow the United States, is now, not to mention when he was president, flying on Air Force One, when he was taking backdoor payments from the likes of Putin and so forth. And we could go into that all day, every day. But the long and the short of it is, we know there's an encapsulation of this figure, this Mad Magazine routine between, which I compare to what I grew up with Alfred E. Newman, which was always satire compared to ridiculous stuff from kind of a young teenager's kind of look at the world, right? Which is perverse in its own right.
But me worry.
Right, but the bottom line is that, so here you've got this idiot president that may or may not be sleeping with Laura Loomer, who's this fascist who's like all sorts of conspiracies, this and that and the other, without any connection to what the real conspiracies are, obviously. Then you've got the richest guy on the planet basically drumming up the most asinine freaking lies that are just so easy that anybody who's not stupid, and do you know what the definition of stupid is?
Doing the same thing over and over again.
No,
That's
that would be us. That would be us. No, stupid is literally being observably ignorant or obviously without education, and then not having any common sense, right? So
common sense, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that's literally the definition of stupid. And so Elon Musk, the richest guy in the world, sinks in this deal about a year ago where he buys this platform where it just becomes this nauseating, propaganda machine in the midst of this insanity. I mean, we've had a former president nearly assassinated twice by two freak shows, and we don't even know who the first guy was really. But
right.
Yet all of this guy yesterday turns out to be on the FBI's list, and now MAGA is complaining that here's the Secret Service not being able to beef up, and it's like, you're the guys that are allowing people that shouldn't ever be anywhere near assault weapons to be able to get them. So cry me a river, man. Are you kidding me? It's cause and effect. It's common sense, you freaking morons. And then in addition to that, all day, every day, it's like mainstream media, Roseanne, just speculates about things like, okay, what are they going to do? They're going to try to normalize the election. They're going to try to act like Trump actually has issues, that they can point out differences between he and Kamala. Meanwhile, it's a shit show of absurdities that we've never seen before on a public display, through some of the most powerful people in the country that are obviously above the law, right? And so how does that strike you, given everything we're trying to get people to understand?
Well, see, here's the thing. The interview that you did, one of two that you did with Bill Black and David K. Johnson.
Oh, yeah. By
David
the way,
K.
we're going to talk to him soon.
Okay. David K. has been talking for 40 years.
Yeah.
Okay. David K. tells people, and they're not listening, but David K. has been telling people for 40 years about Trump. David K. is
meaning
telling
criminal activity that he had evidence of, and he's not just telling people, he's telling the editors of the New York Times, of which he was an editor, writer for. Go ahead.
Right. But David K. picks out, to me, since I wrote for a newspaper for 25 years,
Right.
most important element.
Yeah.
The object of the press is not to get, you got to get this side, you got to get that side.
Right.
Okay. Well, what if this side is telling you bullshit and that side is telling you bullshit?
That's right.
What you have to know.
That's right.
Is, see, this is why I think we could protest in the 60s and 70s. We were grounded in something against which you could protest.
Yeah.
We had the Catholic Church. We had all this morality. We had common sense. We used our common sense to know, okay, well, you look at this side, you look at this side, they're both wrong. Today, the press doesn't do that. They don't do that. And David Kay says it very beautifully in that last, I think it was the video where he talked about the psychologist that coined the phrase Trump contagion.
That's
That
right, which I've been spreading in
right,
hashtag. But to
right.
that point, though, because we're going to have to, we're experimenting again, and we're going to keep it tight. So I want to just try to plant this real quick before we run out of time. But you're absolutely right with the what we call the like what do they do on CNN? I mean, there's an actual term for it. It's more like all these beltway propagandists and insiders. But don't forget, for example, CNN's president Jeff Zucker, as well as the CEO of CBS Les Moonves, before the 2016 election, were saying Trump is good for ratings. They weren't doing any due diligence to understand what Trump was up to. They didn't understand who he was. They gave him a platform, which is hundreds of billions of dollars in freaking, airtime, because it was good for them because they were selling ads. Okay, so they wiped their hands of it. Meanwhile, they basically played roulette with the democracy. And here we are in the situation where it's so beyond comprehension. But what's so funny, and what people need to understand why it's so monumentally important, Roseanne, is that the information that we're sitting on is so like infinitely more important, so infinitely larger in scope, so infinitely more impactful to people's personal lives across the United States than this insane bullying and con artistry of what happens on X. But let me just and mainstream media as well. But I'm going to tee you up for this, and I'll let you take us home, because it's extremely important for everybody to understand that you're getting played. That the entirety of this whole situation is it's smoke and mirrors, because the so-called journalistic establishment has been choked of investigative resources for now decades, which is why I had to become an investigative journalist, even though I was a producer before, graduated, college education, been very involved with things for my entire life, well-read, that sort of thing, always in tune. But at the same time, it wasn't incumbent upon me to go have to find these incredibly insane, profoundly huge truths, because we used to have a media that actually did that. But what we learned was media no
Well,
longer does that.
they don't
And
do it.
because media no longer does that, and hasn't for a very long time, it's a race to the gutter. And now we're in this situation in 2024 where we have a presidential race where, they try to normalize it in the mainstream, where it's like, look, you got this guy, Trump, who's nuts, who says about, eating dogs and cats. And he, finally got fact checked a little bit, but not too much, because they can't interrupt him because they gave him too much airtime in the last debate anyway. I would have shut him off. Like, I would have said, that's it. You're going on mute. This guy's lying. I would have stopped it right there. We would have had fact checkers and said, this is untrue, instead of giving him a chance to actually be elevated in a way that made him credible, right? I mean, that's this whole thing,
They
is that
give them oxygen.
give him oxygen. And so, but he's just a buffoon, clown, idiot who's a red carpet reflection of everybody that we're trying to get people to understand. But the long and the short of it is, in terms of all of this information, everything that's happening today, everything that's going to happen tomorrow, anything that's on your radar is nothing in comparison to what we are actually revealing to you. And what we're revealing to you, and I'll let you go right after this, because I'm going to tee you up with the questions to bring us home, because you've been doing a magnificent job on your truth bombs, my friend. But for me, it's like, people need to understand that everybody has been saying for now over a decade, the system's rigged and the whole thing is corrupt. But they don't ask who did what, when, and why. Now, we've had different levels of corruption throughout the United States' history. We've had different levels of accountability. There's been plenty of corruption throughout the history of the United States, I can assure you, especially going back to the 20s, where you had guys like in Roseanne's hometown, Chicago, and bootlegging and all the rest of it. And then I'll let you take us home. But it wasn't on a national, international, global level with the actual algorithms and the way to move money as fast as it does that could ultimately be financial terrorism. So, for example, during 9/11, we had approximately 3,000 people killed, 4 million people died in all the wars since, cost us about $6 trillion, all for actually going after the wrong country after we never really did anything to investigate and understand, even though we had the 9/11 Commission hearings, which were basically distraction to the Saudis. But that's not the story we want to unveil right now. After that, in 2008, when we had the great financial crisis that wiped everybody out, we had north of 30 million Americans get hit directly, over 10 million foreclosures. And what we're revealing to you is they were all illegal. Now, this led to a mammoth devastation of over 150 million people worldwide getting destroyed by this. The financial terrorism was insane, but instead of anybody going to prison, anybody going to, being grilled in the press, and everybody who was associated with them and the whole system getting taken down, putting in cuffs where they get the money back and everything else, we gave them $71 trillion over the last 14 to 15 years. So what are the four questions, and what is the clean deal?
You know what? First of all, 71 trillion. People cannot argue with us, okay? John O'Brien, all they got to do is watch the new Untouchables with John O'Brien and Jeff Thigpen to see John O'Brien is a recorder of deeds in Massachusetts, and he's got 30,000 false documents, which is, what did Trump get convicted of? Falsification of documents. You don't say your apartment is 10,000 square feet when it's only 3,000. But I digress for a minute. But what we have to do is this. We got to look. All you have to do, if you take a look and you see what we can do if we can stop the illegal pumping of money, which is now up to about 71 trillion, not billion, not million. It's going up under Obama, under Trump, under Biden. What we can do with that, we can revamp the whole, we can have Medicare for all, for everybody, okay? For probably less than, I've heard figures like 9 or 10 trillion. You've given me figures, what we could do to redo the whole infrastructure, our power grid. God knows it needs it to take it from fossil fuel, okay, to green renewable energy. Okay.
But we're also talking about $71 trillion that did not go to 350 million people. We're talking about $71 trillion that went to maybe 100,000, maybe
a minuscule amount.
So people are asking, like, what's up with these billionaires? So the four questions have got to be resolved. And this is what we, the people, have to ask on the campaign trail right now. We can't lose any time at this. We've got to corner Vice President nominee and Governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, on the campaign trail, because he strikes me as an honest guy. Does he strike you as an honest guy?
Yeah.
Okay. He wasn't made in a think tank. He wasn't made in an Ivy League school. He wasn't made for a white shoe law firm or at a hedge fund or a private equity fund. He came out of a high school where he was a National Guard for 25 years, where he was in the, he was state championship football coach and that sort of thing. He's not one of them that makes sure that you don't understand what the hell's going on, i.e. you can't see the forest for the trees. So the question that we have to ask Governor Walz is this, and we got to ask it every day, all day, from every corner of the country, wherever he appears. And Roseanne, what are we going to ask him?
We're going to say, look, was this United States of America set up to enrich, prop up billionaires and the billionaire apparatuses that have destroyed separation of powers? They've destroyed the judiciary. They've destroyed the lawyers. Is that what the United States of America was about? We were fighting against a king. We were fighting against a tyrant. We weren't fighting so that we could uplift and constantly supply billionaires with coke, an unlimited supply of fuel for their rotten brains.
Okay, but said another way, and that was great. That was absolutely fantastic, my friend Mighty Mouse from Chicago. But really, the question to Tim Walsh is, because he was a history teacher, he did teach sociology, and he had students in front of him for the last 20 years. And I just want to know, Governor Walsh, when you taught your students history, particularly United States history, to what Roseanne had said, were we created to prop up billionaires and billionaire apparatuses to be above the law, as Roseanne said, but also to be above market forces because of what Roseanne said, because we give them trillions of dollars behind the scenes. But this is the most important part, illegally, while they betray everything that we're supposed to be and destroy millions of people, which we call financial terrorism. How do you think he would respond to that, Roseanne?
He'd say, absolutely not. That never came into my mind. We were built on liberty and justice and equality.
I bet he would roll his eyes and laugh if you asked that question. I would think he would think that was such an absurd question that he couldn't even put his head around it. That's why we got to get thousands of people to ask that question, because that's the only question that matters, truly, because that's what we are. That's what we've done. And that's why we have a situation, as we started off this dialogue with, that you can have absurdities beyond comprehension millions of times per second piped throughout the world from a billionaire guy who was living off the teat of government, basically subsidized. I'm talking about Elon Musk, with billions of dollars, not to mention backdoored through all the stuff that we're talking about, so that he could create a propaganda machine with his private equity pals. And as it turns out, the Saudi private wealth, everybody's got skin in the game to create a freaking autocracy in the United States, so they could do what? Get more of the same crack that you just pointed out. What happens if you give a junkie the keys to the safe filled with crack?
Give me more, give me more, give me more.
So that's what we're talking about, people. And the financial terrorism has real world impacts that are like crazy people going out and getting assault weapons to go shoot somebody because they want attention, because they're crazy, and that and 50 million other stories that we could talk about all day, every day. The bottom line is Roseanne and I are going to come to you day in and day out. We're going to give you a top line sort of, awareness of what we're all looking at. And we're going to try to make you aware of what you're not seeing, because you can find all of the answers now, including the best merchandise in the world. Where, Roseanne?
On thecleannewdeal.org. That's all you got to do. Thecleannewdeal.org. It'll come right up for you. You can't let Elon win. You can't let darkness isn't going to win. We got the light. We got the truth. We're busting through.
I love that. We're going beast mode for the truth. And what you have to, it's really the big bang of truth. And you have to become a nuclear reaction to it, because when you live in lies, you're depraved. When you live in truth, you live in light. When you live in lies, inside you die. When you have the truth, you're bulletproof. Please, my friends, stop buying lies. Stop lying. The truth is your savior, is our savior. And on that note, take us home.
And the truth will make you bulletproof. Remember, it's not rocket science, it's racketeering. Onward.